Hello and welcome to episode 118 of Kaiju Curry House, the fortnightly show that gives you a healthy dose of kaiju goodness every other Monday. I'm Paul Williams, joined today by both Connor and Joe, and we're going to be talking about Godzilla x Kong, the new empire, amongst our new normal, just general banter and rabbit holes. But before we discuss anything else, Joe, what have Kaiju been up to?
I feel like I gotta go ahead and throw this out here. Since the last episode aired, you may notice I was conspicuously missing. It's because Joe got married and he was on his honeymoon. So woohoo, I'm a married man.
Excuses. I'm joking.
I know. I'm sorry, folks. I recognize I have fans. But no, in terms of kaiju stuff, I can't say that I've been necessarily up to a lot of kaiju things. My partner is very understanding. She's fantastic, but she did not want to fill our honeymoon with kaiju. So what I can say is that I went to the Gallery of Paleontology and Comparative Anatomy in Paris, which we are dinosaur friendly on this podcast, or at least if I have anything to say about it. So one of the great things about Paris is it has this museum, and it's relatively inexpensive to get in. I don't want to say that it was unpopular, but if you look at the lines at the Louvre, which are literally a mile long, and then you consider how easy it was to get into this particular museum, I would say that you could get into this museum and have a better time of it. So the Gallery of Paleontology and Comparative Anatomy in Paris has some amazing stuff. So they had a number of thylacines. They had an entire second story devoted to dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures.
Wait, they're still alive? The thylacines? They've got them all?
No, thylacines were not. It's all skeletons, which is kind of neat. But they have their own dodo, which is neat. You can kind of judge how great a museum is by whether or not they have a dodo, because those are very hard to get. But one of the things that was also really cool there, we on the podcast and perhaps the fan base may recognize what a coelacanth is. It was a fish that was presumed extinct. Everybody thought it had gone extinct with the dinosaurs during the KT extinction event 65 million years ago. And then in 1938, a fisherman just happened to reel one in. That fish that they found from 1938 is actually in that museum. So I got to go ahead and look at and just be within like a foot of the original fantastic discovery coelacanth, which I thought was pretty cool. Other things, there was a cast of a Carnotaurus, which is really cool because that's a popular dinosaur, but you don't often see a full-size skeleton of it. So that was really neat. They had the Sarcosuchus imperator, which is a whopping big crocodile. It is not a cast. That was an actual skeleton. They had actual Spinosaurus aegypticus bones, which were not small. There was so many things that were absolutely incredible in that museum. If you know what you're looking for, it is totally worth it. So yeah, if you go to Paris, check out that museum. You will not encounter crowds. If you know what you're looking for, it's incredible. And yeah, it's really wonderful history and really neat things in there. So I will give a recommend and a nod to that. Other than that, yeah, like I said, I have kind of been romancing rather than watching kaiju films and reading that media. But dinosaurs are pretty close, so I'll throw it in. Incidentally, I noticed, Paul, your background, for those of you who are looking on YouTube, features Godzilla's skull, which is pretty neat. So if you go to the Paleontology Museum or Museum of Paleontology and Comparative Anatomy, you will notice that Godzilla's skull in that promotional image has a lot more mammalian features than it does reptilian, which is fairly interesting from a design standpoint. But yeah, there we go. Things you learn. Connor, I'll pick on you. What have Kaiju been up to?
Well, it's funny they mentioned Paul's background there. You don't seem to have mentioned my one. Would you like to relay to the audience what you thought mine looks like when you saw it?
A hairball.
Mm-hmm.
So, Connor, for those of you who are listening along with us, Connor decided to put up on his background for everybody who comes along in YouTube, an orangutan that seems to be on some kind of breathing device. Apparently, this is a meme, but because Connor's head takes up where the face would be, it looks like an orange hairball. So, yeah.
You sound joking. All right, I'll behave. It's funny how you mentioned like the coelacanth as well, because somewhat relevant. So I live in Aberdeen, which is in the northeast of Scotland, right? And
I thought it was in Australia.
oh, I wish it was. That way, it's not cold all the time. But anyway, so we actually have a thing called the zoology building, and there is a taxidermy coelacanth in there as well. I only bring this up because recently there was a film out on Apple TV, I think it is, called Tetris, right? Where basically a bunch of Hollywood folk basically filmed my hometown because it looks like Soviet Russia. So, but I do find it funny that the basically the main Russian headquarters is the zoology building, and I just know for a fact that just watching it that there's some bad taxidermied animals in there. Anyway, moving on. So what have I been up to? So, been playing a bit of games recently. There was a recent game that came out. We have mentioned Resident Evil, of course, on podcasts numerous times before. So
I feel like that's Paul that mentions it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been playing the Resident Evil 4 remake that has came out recently. I got the Steelbook edition because game
Is it kaiju heavy?
It's got some parasites in it, I guess. There's like weird, creepy parasites.
Is this like a giant sea louse scenario? Like,
there's a giant creature in the lake. There's like a giant salamander thing in the lake in the game. That's a boss. So, and there's also a giant man in it.
This is a bit of a stretch. We're going to have to get a fan review or a fan weigh-in of how kaiju-y the Resident Evil franchise is.
Well, you could say that the bosses turn kaiju-esque, I guess, with like the Las Plagas, they call it in the game, instead of the T-virus. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Hey, Resident Evil's been brought on this podcast before. It's kaiju-related. Deal with it. Right.
I don't think it is.
I would argue that overall the franchise. I know it's zombie heavy.
Think about it.
It's zombie heavy, but
there's a big snake and a big spider in the first game. It's just
well, there's the hunters in the first game, and then we've got the lickers in the second game.
Yeah, exactly. Just oh god,
and the lickers are definitely kaijus.
The look on my face right now for everybody that's listening. We're going to have a spirited discussion about this later.
Did we say Daikaiju or did we say kaiju? Joe, what's a kaiju? A strange creature.
You're a strange creature. Anyways, moving on from Resident Evil.
Right. Also, recently out in Japan, Shin Ultraman has came out in as a 4K release. Look who's got it. Yeah.
So that, to be fair, Shin Ultraman has a lot more going for it.
Yeah. So look at this: 2 separate slipcases. Oh, no disc in here because I'm still watching it.
I didn't realize it was that long, to be fair.
Right. And this is all special features.
So is that 2 or 3 discs?
There is 4 discs.
4 discs of special features.
Well, there's 3 special feature discs, and then there's the.
Pretty sure Avatar didn't have 4 discs.
That's a lot of special features.
Yeah, that's right. This is why you should always import from Japan.
Is any of it dubbed or subbed into English?
No.
Brilliant. 3 hours of special features that we can't understand.
But compared to what we get with some releases over here, that's something. But what I can really appreciate with the 4K release of Shin Ultraman is, keep in mind, this is a more recent movie that came out last year. Did it come out last year? I can't remember if it was last year or this year.
We're still waiting for it.
To be fair, we're 4 months into this year. It's probably last year.
Well, I think we had it in January, didn't we? But it was last year in Japan.
Yeah. But this is what I love about Japan, right? So this is the Shin Ultraman set from fairly recent. Right. This is the Shin Godzilla set from a few years back. And it's consistent box art, folks. Like, this is, I don't know. As a kaiju collector, I want my spines to be matching. So I really appreciate that, despite the fact there's almost like an almost 10-year difference. Look at that. That's a
Right. Okay.
matching
So they've got the
spine.
same. They have the same
This
font.
just rubs your OCD the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, so apart from that, that's pretty much from me, really, I guess. So I guess, Paul, what have kaiju been up to?
I've been delving into the world of anime, I guess. So I've been continuing with Evangelion, the redos. So I've now. I think they're called the redos, aren't they? I don't know. Either way, I've watched
rebuild, but redo.
the rebuild. Oh, I thought it was rebuild of Evangelion. So yeah, so I've watched 3.33 and 3.0 plus 1.01. I think they were called, but it really went downhill after 1 and 2. This might have been in the original, and I just completely blanked it out of my head. But I can't remember it being set 14 years later. That probably was in the original, wasn't it? Is that just my memory?
No, it never happened in the original.
Okay, I was just like, what do you mean? I was like, what's going on? It ended
like
fine, and then it's like, what? Now Nerve is bad, and Willie's now the good guys who were Nerve, but
yeah. So
it
one
was
of
strange.
the things that I will say about the Evangelion series versus the movies, the series. Do I want to say it had a cohesive plot? But anyway, the movies, I think 1 and 2, the first two, they follow the films or follow the series, as a sum up, kind of like the abridged versions, pretty well.
Yeah, but it has a bit more of a proper ending rather than that.
Yeah, but then they radically shift in another direction, which you were not expecting. It doesn't follow anything that you've seen before, and it's a bit bonkers. I mean, it wasn't what I was looking for in the series. I'm sure that there are folks that love it, but
are you telling me that not a single one of Hideaki Anno's works is not, in fact, bonkers, Joe?
He leaned into the bonkers, didn't he? Like, he really thought, right, do you know what? I'm going to redo it, and I'm going to go crazy. I'm just going to do these crazy. And it's
to be fair, it feels like that. So we're going to pull in from left field here. So Dragon Ball Z has dragons. Okay, you see, kaiju related. Anyways, so
does it?
So Dragon Ball Z was supposed to end with the Frieza saga, and then it was supposed to end with the Cell saga, and the writer, kept getting dragged back into the series. So then when we get the Boo saga, like, he wrote it under protest. So in the Boo saga, rather than a menacing villain, we get a villain that's like chubby and turns people into cookies. And we get Super Saiyan 3 with ridiculously long hair and perverted old man gods and things like that. So, I mean, like, it was one of those things where he just started throwing stuff at it to make it ridiculous. And some people absolutely love that saga. But the rest of us kind of know, like, what was going on there, because tonally it shifts quite a lot.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't that 3.33 was awful. It just...
When you start a review like that, it wasn't awful.
But compared to the other two films, it was like, okay, yeah, they've now just reset the title. It's 14 years later, things have happened. Fine, let's do this. But then when they went on to the 1.3.0 and 1.1 bit, that was like, it was a lot longer. It has
like the numbering in that type of format. You can tell it's an Anno film.
Yeah, well, there's an anti-universe.
I'm sure that the actual Japanese titles don't have the extra numbers. I think that's
do they not?
Thing. Yeah,
that would be a lot better without the numbers. I think it's called Thrice Upon a Time, the final film, but it is 3.0 plus 1.1, and yeah, that is absolutely bonkers. I admittedly I didn't watch it in one sitting because I was getting bored, and it was, I don't know, 2 or so hours long, whereas the other ones were more like hour and a half, more like feature length. I was like, fine. That fourth one was just, what is going on? It was mental.
Still haven't finished it. Still haven't got back to it.
Spoilers. Shinji resets the world. He does Neon Genesis. They actually say the words. He's like, right, we're doing Neon Genesis, and we're going to reset the world, but without the Evas ever existing. And so everyone that died sort of comes back to life, and Evas have never happened. Everyone's happy. Well, a few people sacrifice their lives for that to happen, but still, it's just like, okay, whatever. Didn't care at that point.
They'll bring it back in the future. I guarantee it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they can reboot it.
Listen, Evangelion just makes too much money. They're not going to.
I find it very interesting. Like, to be fair, like, so we have this whole Shin universe they're creating, and I feel like the one that's currently missing, although it shows up promotionally all the time, is the Evangelion. So, are we going to get a live-action Evangelion, a Shin Evangelion?
I think the fourth movie is also called Shin Evangelion as well. So who knows? I don't know.
Well, they've been talking about live action for years, haven't they? Like decades. Maybe now is the time.
I
can't remember when they said Daniel Radcliffe was going to be cast as Shinji.
Oh Christ!
Yeah, there was a time when he was rumored to be playing the lead.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Harry Potter was like just taken off.
Just let Netflix do it. You know, they haven't.
They did a good job of the other one. So
yeah, they did a fantastic job.
They didn't upset anyone.
No. I mean, Death Note. I
like Death Note.
The anime or the live action?
The live action.
Directed by Adam Wingard.
Oh, Paul, that was good.
Oh,
I haven't watched the anime. I'm just the live action was good.
I mean,
got William Dafoe.
The rest of the episode, Connor. My goodness.
What else?
I'm feeling really triggered this episode. I mean, like, first of all, Resident Evil is kaiju related. Now
it is.
Death Note. I mean, all of this isn't really related to kaiju, but my goodness.
I said there'd be rabbit holes.
You know what's funny with the Death Note is that they did a CGI face for Ryuk, but yet they could have just used Willem Dafoe's real face for that movie. But
what? No, but William Dafoe wasn't. He was
Ryuk in the Death Note.
He was
movie.
The voice, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the voice.
Oh, he was the voice, because Jason Lyles was the actor, wasn't he?
Yeah,
I'm sure he came on and talked about it. So I was like, that's cool.
Apples. Lots of apples.
Yeah. And other than Evangelion, I watched, as I promised, Starship Troopers, the anime, or at least the first episode.
Oh, are you talking about Roughnecks?
No, the 80s anime.
Oh, right. Okay, there you go.
Because I was curious. They said it's more closer to the book than the film.
More closer.
And I'll give it a go. And joy, it's not half bad. It's
book isn't half bad. So what's the book?
So it starts off with like footage of soldiers fighting something and things being fired back at them and freezing them and then blowing up. And the story's still Rico. I mean, he loses in the football game this time, but other than that, he's still a kid. His dad wants him to take over the family business, which is in the food industry. And his dad's like, we help people, we're giving food. And he said, I've been hearing about the army asking for more food. And Rico's saying, I hear there might be, my friends hacked something and seen this footage, think there might be a war coming. So everyone's in the dark about the bugs, about what's going on. Everyone's just living their lives quite happily. Carl is not a psychic. He's a computer expert. So I don't think there's any psychics in here. And there's none of that propaganda adverts in it. It is all just kind of human drama with this unknown enemy somewhere in the outer rim of the planets.
The propaganda aspect is a Paul Verhoeven thing. So
yeah. So I thought it might be part of the tone, but it is nothing to do with the anime. So it's quite interesting to see. And I think I'm curious to watch more, but the problem is the quality is so low because all there is apparently is a Laserdisc edition of it, which someone has copied and put onto YouTube, and that's all I could find. So it was never put onto DVD, only Laserdisc.
Golly.
But it was really interesting. to watch it. And funnily enough, the dad's not like against him going to the army. He's like, you make your decision. If you want to work, if you want to take over the business when you're older, fine. If not, do what you want to do. While his mum just slaps him and walks off.
What a supportive dad. To be fair, that is closer to the book because the dad in the book does join up.
Does
at
he?
some point. Yep. Yeah. Spoilers to a 70-year-old book, but
So yeah, I think that's quite interesting. I just wish there was a higher quality version available to watch. Maybe I'll have to pick up the book at some time. Who knows? But yeah, that's what I've been kaiju up to. So, do we want to talk
the new
Godzilla
Empire?
Zero
Let's talk.
at all? Godzilla Zero at all? Or are we saying no?
Godzilla Zero?
Just because you had an image, Joe. You have an image that's apparently real. We don't know.
Yeah, it's debatable whether or not that image is real or not. Some folk are saying it's fake.
The wonders of the internet have given us an image, as they often do, but we have an actual teaser trailer for Godzilla and Kong, the new Empire.
Let's go.
Like we need to discuss this.
Yeah. Let's go with Godzilla. Godzilla cross Kong.
Godzilla X Kong.
X Kong. Is it an X or is it a cross?
Cross.
It's multiplying.
Maybe it's
multiplying. Godzilla times Kong equals
Godzilla
times Kong equals new Empire.
Godzilla Kiss Kong. There you go.
Oh no, Godzilla XOXO Kong.
So, for those of you who have not seen this trailer, this episode is dropping the Monday following the trailer. I think it was a day ago that we got the images and the teaser trailer itself. What we've got is basically a leaner version of Kong, probably an older version of Kong's species, sitting on a throne of sorts. We've got two dark pillars rising up with no real back to his so-called chair. And there's just bones all about this layer is what I'd call it. There's a hazy red mist, and there's just littered with Titan skeletons. And then as we pan out, we see Godzilla and Kong's skulls in the foreground. Godzilla has kind of a bluish haze coming out of it. Kong's kind of has an orange haze coming out of it. And then this other Titan, which again, presumably is Kong's species, we get a close-up of him. He kind of has gingery hair, and his eyes kind of have like a slight blue glow to it. And then we cut the title. But anyways, that is what we've got. But we have a variety of different Titan skeletons in there, which is interesting. Presumably, this is a tougher, maybe silverbacky sort of version of Kong's species. And if there is a empire, so to speak, it would be rather interesting, because what we did notice between the novelization of Godzilla versus Kong and in the film itself, the temple or the throne room that Kong goes into and gets his nifty axe, that wasn't made by humans. That was made by Kong's species, of which he is a very young member thereof. So this creature, this apparition that's in the trailer, presumably it is quite intelligent, and it may very well have its own civilization. It could be the last, it could be something new, male or female. It wasn't necessarily hinted at. There were hints and rumors going around the internet previously about a Son of Kong spinoff, so to speak. So this opens that up, I suppose, in theory, because we do have other members of Kong's species. But yeah, I'm really pumped to see where this goes, because I'm quite interested in the new concept of a kaiju / Titan civilization, or culture, as it were. Because it was an advanced culture that made those ruins, was it not?
Okay, so we're confident that is definitely not any version of Kong. That is just a different species.
Well, no,
that's not like a mutated Kong. Kong doesn't get skinny and blue eyes.
No, so I think that we're differentiating, like, it is not Kong because we see Kong and Godzilla's skulls in the
Skull,
foreground at
yeah.
the end of the trailer. Also, just the general shape and the facial structure. Kong kind of has a beard, whereas this creature, I mean, like, it was kind of like not as gangly as this, but it was kind of like the Smeagol version of Kong.
Yeah, I
You,
was
know,
away
you
to
get
say
where I'm going with
it's like
that?
a
Yeah.
golem, like Kong, pretty much. Yeah,
A
Yeah, I mean,
Smeagol
like
version of Kong, I
it
like
looks
that.
like it will rough you up, but at the same time, it is leaner. So maybe Kong's been living the good life because of Monarch. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
maybe.
So, I mean, because we went to Hollow Earth, but we only saw a tiny fraction of it. This could be the other side of Hollow Earth. Could be where this
Could be.
civilization, this empire, exists, and as it's Godzilla X Kong, we're assuming that they're still kind of friends. They're not going to just go at each other when
Are
they
they
see.
friends, or do they just
They're not.
tolerate each other's existence?
Well, I think there's a mutual respect, isn't there, that they built up in the previous film that should carry forward. I don't know if Kong's going to come across this guy or come across this villain, this new empire, and go back to Kong and Godzilla and ask for help. I don't
I don't
I don't
think
know if they're on that
that's the
much
way that
of
it's
good
going to
terms.
necessarily jive. So,
Well, how do you think it's going to happen, Joe?
so my speculation is here. What I really want to go back to is that original cave and that culture, right? Why did that tribe go extinct? So we didn't encounter any other Godzillas. Kong made quite quick handiwork of that snake that like threatened them. There were just a variety of threats there which Kong seemed to easily overcome. We didn't see any of the baddies, so to speak, like the big titans that are on Earth's surface. So
I'm pretty
have the
sure
Kongs.
that Godzilla kind of roughed Kong up in the
Well,
film.
the thing is like in Hollow Earth, are we looking at an empire which has been won, and perhaps that outpost, that tribe, cave that Kong went to and got his axe, maybe that isn't where the civilization is anymore, because again, all the threats seemed to be pretty minor from a Titan's perspective in Hollow Earth. My theory, and this is where Godzilla gets into it, because Godzilla doesn't strike me as the type of intelligence that gets led into Hollow Earth. He doesn't necessarily get back. And then getting Godzilla back out of Hollow Earth, I don't think that's necessarily a thing either. I think the new empire is Kong's species, particularly this Kobo-esque character, if we want to go down the Planet of the Apes route,
Yes,
coming to
I
the
like that.
surface. And that's where Kong and Godzilla have to like go against this. Perhaps this is one of those things where Kong has to choose between humans and his actual species, and he has to rise up and defeat this alpha Kong, Kong simian. And in order to do that, he kind of needs a massive honking reptile in order to sort it out, because he does have an affinity for the human beings that have helped like raise him to a degree,
Yeah.
that have been there, that he feels protective of. They have followed him to Hollow Earth, so that relationship has continued. He knows their language, albeit sign language. So this new tribe, as it were, this existent tribe, this extant tribe that has been in Hollow Earth, perhaps it is like defeated all the threats, and then it realizes there's a much wider world upstairs that is far easier to live in, but we have to take out a few remaining titans, and then there are humans everywhere, but they are easily quelled because we are like a tribe of Kongs. So I think what is going to happen is Kong is going to face off with this other alpha, lose, all sorts of pandemonium breaks loose on Earth via this tribe of Kongs, which, it will be interesting because the humans will probably have mixed reactions to Kong because he was the one Titan that, listened to them. Things go pear-shaped. Godzilla shows up because he is the natural order and, the scale upon which everything is balanced. And again, he and Kong will have to team up, but Kong will have a philosophical decision to make. That is my prediction with how this goes. And then because Kong will probably end up as the new Alpha Kong, that is where the son of Kong will then happen because we will have a mate, presumably, for our favorite simian Titan.
Yeah.
Does everybody think that that makes sense? Because that's how I would write it.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. I mean, the imagery we've got of all the skulls and bones makes you think that, yeah, this is the alpha, this is the bad guy. I don't know how much of an empire he's got, because I can't see Godzilla fighting off multiple Kongs. And perhaps there was an empire, and he's just like, he's almost wiped out the resources, and he wants something new to fight. And so, as you say, when he discovers there's a world upstairs, he's going to go there. He's going to have a bit of a tussle with Kong. Kong's going to limp off. And Kong's either going to be smart enough to lead him to Godzilla for a fight, or Godzilla's going to sense something's up and come and help out for whatever reason. Because I'm not quite sure where Godzilla sits in Legendary's universe. He was the savior in the first one. He seems to be the villain almost in the second one.
Godzilla is an anti-hero. He is his own team.
Well, that's it. As they say, he's Mother Nature. He's just a force of nature. He's not really on anyone's side. But he always seems to be helping the humans. So I would say he's going to help out.
I think he's less helping, more interested in protecting the Earth, maybe, or just his territory.
I don't think that he's that intelligent. I think it's just a turf thing, and I think that humans...
It's just territorial.
I think that humans give him an easier life, so he's not necessarily averse to him, but it's like a human being looking at ants, or like at a butterfly or a bee. Or actually, a bee is a pretty good example, because bees are pretty numerous. They can sting you, but at the same time, you get honey. So, like, Godzilla has his radiation, which periodically we do release catastrophically. But Godzilla, again, going back to Godzilla versus Kong, if you look at that temple, there is a Titan skull with a Godzilla dorsal plate axe embedded in its skull. Is that a Godzilla, like, member of Godzilla's species there that's lying on the floor dead? If it is, that means, as pugnacious as Godzilla is, he's not the biggest. So is Godzilla a viable threat for one of these Kongs? I mean, like, certainly a whole tribe of Kongs could take Godzilla. One Kong certainly gave him a bit of trouble. Let's be honest here. And if this is indeed a culture, if it was their culture that manufactured those axes out of Godzilla plates, that means that they definitely at one point or another took down at least one Godzilla, butchered it, and then made weapons out of its carcass, presumably, which they used to kill other Godzillas.
That's it.
So I mean, like, there was a whole row of axes if you go back to the film, because they all light up. Pattern, yes. And they make a Godzilla in the floor. So clearly there's a mythology in this culture around Godzilla's species, maybe, as like a rival species, not necessarily perhaps in intelligence, but certainly in power and a respect and a mythos there. But the fact that we have that many axes, it means to me that whatever tribe Kong's species had that made that, a number of them were armed and would go out, presumably on raids, to kill whatever Titans were out there. Because Kong's shown to be a carnivore. So in theory, this could lead into your theory, Paul, that, like, there aren't enough resources in Hollow Earth to sustain this species of Titan, this economy that their culture has around meat, or, like, whatever substance they're finding. So perhaps they have taken out all the large viable threats, but that was also what was feeding them. So if they go up, perhaps humans are on the menu, perhaps kaiju are on the menu, whatever, but it represents a new opportunity for them, and they are probably going to go up.
Yeah, I mean, there can't be that many of them going up, because they could easily take on Godzilla. If there's an empire, which is a lot.
So this is the thing too. So if we want to go X factor here, if we really want to rile things up, so Ghidorah managed to stir up all the Titans on Earth's surface, right?
Yeah.
We had the call that was heard around the world. In theory, as an alpha, Godzilla can do that, and he does do that at the end of Godzilla King of the Monsters. He quells the Titans, but on the flip side of that, he could rile them up. He could assemble them. Titans assemble. Like we could have a moment like that, and it could be the war of the Kongs versus the other Titans. That's a potential there because he does have that. The other thing that we need to consider here as well is that Godzilla may have seen this particular Kong before. If we look at the previous Godzilla comic, which was released by IDW, we know that Godzilla's lair, the one that gets destroyed in Godzilla King of the Monsters, that gets nuked to revive him, was his lair. And then he goes around searching for a new one amidst his other travels. Sorry, folks, for any spoilers. And then he lands upon one lair, which was the lair of a Kong, a respected, rival of his. And that's why he kind of goes there last. So he sets up shop there, but he never defeated that rival. And it isn't Skull Island that he's at. So where did that Kong go? We don't know, but it's certainly introducing a possibility that Godzilla has met this particular Kong before. Or perhaps that's why that Kong knows that the surface world exists. Maybe, again, because this is an intelligent culture, that Kong sees our Kong with people and figures out there is a route to the surface and goes up.
Okay.
But I think that these are the plot elements that Legendary has been setting up and playing with. And I think that these could very well be the threads that they pull on.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of an army of Kongs versus the Titans in an Avengers Assemble moment sounds both ridiculous but awesome at the same time.
And I can. The thing is, I think it would be cool. I mean, like, it would be fun at the very least.
It would be fun.
But the other thing that I can see here is like Kong in between these two, and then like walking over to like Godzilla's side with his axe is like, I choose them sort of moment. So, because let's face it, a little army of Kongs is a force to be reckoned with, particularly if they are armed with Godzilla battle axes.
Yes.
Which they had more
which they should have, yeah.
Why wouldn't they have it in another? So again, this is me. Again, like, this is the way that I would write it. These are the type of plot scenarios that I would throw in.
What do we think about the human element? I mean, are we going to have the same characters from the previous films come back?
So I feel like some characters will certainly return. We've definitely had a reoccurring Monarch cast and their children.
I don't want them to come back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was
Millie Bobby Brown, but I just no.
I think I have read there's a new cast entirely for this film, so I don't think it is the.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy for the Kong family, the Kong human family, to stay there, and for them to be at risk, which is why Kong,
that makes sense.
Yeah, because they settled in Middle Earth, didn't they? Like an outpost there.
Don't call it Middle Earth.
Sorry, Middle Earth.
It's Hollow Earth.
That's the crossover you're waiting for.
There it is. That is the after credits moment there. Godzilla goes to Middle Earth.
Godzilla goes to Middle Earth.
Oh, yeah. Crikey!
Peter Jackson's Kong is now canon in the MonsterVerse.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that that'd be really good. I'd really like to see some more sign language in a major motion picture. And I'm really chuffed that it was in the last Godzilla versus Kong. So I hope that we have a lot more sign language. I think that would be great. Seeing Kong perhaps attempt to sign with the other Kongs would be really cool. But as a sign language user, I really appreciate that linguistic element in the films. So I would hope that that's there. As much as you may or may not want them, I think when they say a whole new cast, perhaps a whole new starring cast, but I do think that we will see some familiar faces in it. I also think that we will potentially see a time jump, like maybe 5 to 10 years after the events of Godzilla versus Kong, just to give the world time to be used to it, for things to simmer down, because like the funding, like to go down to Hollow Earth and set up base camp and all of that, to have like a working operational base. What's happened to Mechagodzilla? Will there be, like a new mech element in the new film, or is that outlawed? Will there be new laws around that sort of thing? How is humanity keeping the Titans, at guard? Is Orca still around? If not, like what is the new like way, or they got a Pacific Rim route where there are walls? It will be interesting because the world, in theory, at this point, will have grown somewhat used to Titans or understand them enough because they are public knowledge now, and they have been for a number of years. So if an army of Kongs does come up, what is the, not necessarily the Titan reaction, but what is the human reaction? What is the human response? So that's another interesting element to play at.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to play too much on that, but if they do, it would be good to see. I don't think the writing's going to be geared towards that. It's going to be just setting up a battle, and that'll be it.
So one of the things, like obviously human beings, world leaders, all that, they're not going to want the collateral damage that was at Hong Kong, are they? They are not going to want the damage that was in Boston. Like these, like San Francisco, like every time these things show up, it's terrible. So when we're talking about a human response, the human element of this film, I think there will be the Hollow Earth element, and then it will quickly escalate to what's our plan of action should we have a Titan threat again? What are we calling on? What are our, like defenses, as it were? Because they can't just nuke things, because that is shown with Godzilla, that is not the way to go. And again, because they do so much ecologically, as was shown in Godzilla King of the Monsters, there is an incentive to keep them around. So what do humans have? At one point we made a Mecha Godzilla. It didn't work out. Admittedly, it was a fantastic failure on every level, but we do have that capability. So as corny as it sounds, I feel like I have to mention a Mechanical Kong, but at the same time, I'm going to lean in another direction and say, is this a potential Jet Jaguar-esque scenario where no, hear me out. A humanoid mech would make sense, and an AI mech would make sense.
A humanoid mech.
Like a humanoid shape. Right. That's where I'm thinking of a Jet Jaguar. I'm not, but like that kind of sentience. Again, we're going like left field here, what we could throw out as a human response, because they aren't necessarily going to go Mecha Godzilla again, are they?
I don't think.
But at the same time, like something vaguely Jaeger-esque, I can see that as a potential, but there has to be some kind of deterrent, which humanity has done. And whether or not that's a specific frequency of Orca, a type of chemical deterrent like we saw on Monster Island in the original Showa series. I'm just saying that human beings have lived with Titans, and there needs to be a viable defense mechanism at this point. Otherwise, one of the major criticisms of this film would be like, you've known these things are around the whole time now, and they have periodically gone nuts. You're saying you've planned for nothing. So I think that there will be a plan, and there will probably be two teams. There will be Kong's Hollow Earth team, and then there will be the defense team. And I think that those are going to be the human element of the film.
Yeah. Okay, so Monarch will have some sort of defense. They could be using bird sounds. That worked in a Godzilla film.
Godzilla 85 is a good movie. Don't knock that strategy.
Right, Connor. Conscious, you haven't really said anything. Me and Joe have just been going back and forth. So, what do you think will happen, and what do you want to happen in this film?
Monarch will use giant crates of bananas. I'm joking. No, right, okay. So this is what I think. So, I don't think that that the Kong that we see, or whatever it is, Manky Kong is what I'm calling him, Manky Kong. I don't think that. Part of me thinks that it might be a twist. I don't think he might not actually be like the main threat. I don't think, because like you said, we've seen what Godzilla can do to Kong alone in the previous film, right? So this, unless there is an entire race of Kongs going to war with the humans or something like that, which it probably is. I don't see this Kong being much of a threat, really, if it's going up against Godzilla. But then again, in that trailer, we do see its eyes glowing in the dark or whatever. It might just be it might just be an effect for the trailer, but who knows? Maybe this is potentially a Kong that has Godzilla powers, which is very silly when I say it.
Hey, it can happen. He could have some sort of ability that we don't know about, or he could just
Yeah.
be more of a veteran fighter, because Kong's still quite an infant almost, really.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Even though, like, when they released those first images of like Kong, with the beard, I was calling Old Man Kong. But oh dear. But honestly, aside from that, it's just I don't know what to really think about the trailer because,
Well, it's a 30-second clip that just shows.
like, I don't
that.
expect a deep plot. That's for
No.
sure. And given it's Adam Wingard directing it, and his comments on Godzilla vs Kong just says that he doesn't really care too much about the franchise. I'm honest. He just sees it as big dumb monster movies. So, I don't expect a deep plot. I think it's practically just going to be the same as Godzilla vs Kong, where it's just big dumb action for the most part. But other than that, it's just I'm always happy to see more Godzilla films. I'm always happy to see more MonsterVerse films. But I don't know.
So, what would you want to see, given what we know so far, which is very, very little?
What would I want to see? That's a good question. I don't know. Just I don't know.
Well, we know it's not Godzilla versus Kong. This is Godzilla X Kong, so they are definitely teaming up this time for sure. There's not going to be.
They go to therapy and they resolve their differences.
I say they now got a respect for each other. I don't think we're going to see any fighting between Godzilla and Kong.
No, unless I don't know. Maybe there's maybe a bit where they're antagonized with each other, and then they sort of come here, you, that sort of thing.
I'm just wondering what other threats could there be apart if what you say is right, and she's not the main bad guy.
Well,
who else?
There had been a rumor in the stratosphere about Godzilla popping up.
Sorry, what was that, Connie? Your audio went.
There was some rumors in the stratosphere about another certain Godzilla popping up at some point.
Another, like a son of Godzilla.
One that might come from space. I think they made a bad film about that in the 90s. I'm not sure, but I don't know either. But that was the rumor that was going on for a while, that potentially Space Godzilla could be involved. But
wow.
Don't take my word for that at all. That's just a rumor that just spread from Facebook, probably on Toho Kingdom as well. I don't know, but oh god.
The fact this image shows a Godzilla skull means that Godzilla or Godzillas have been in this Hollow Earth at some point. So, yeah. I mean, could we see a Godzilla egg or something, that there is going to be another Godzilla?
Please. I think Godzilla's an endangered species.
Yeah.
At best.
Please, oh please, Legendary, please put Minya in the series.
No, I think, that Godzilla has enough intelligence, and it is a powerful enough species that it constitutes a viable threat to Kong's species, because on a one-on-one match with no weaponry, presumably Godzilla would normally come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slew of weaponry at its disposal. So because of this,
Godzilla took an axe to the face in the last film. I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, so in any case, one of the things that I would argue is that Kong's species certainly accounted for this. The giant stone door, for instance. I mean, Godzilla melted right through the core of the earth. Godzilla's breath could presumably get through it, but that door was pretty well hidden. And I wouldn't say that Godzilla is necessarily the most intelligent of creatures. So perhaps Kong's race did guerrilla tactics, and took out Godzilla's species over time, so that maybe 1, 2 were on the surface, and that was where Godzilla's species persisted. and they are no longer in Hollow Earth. Granted, there are creatures which have similar adaptions, like the lizard Doug, and then we had those weird bird raptor things with the dorsal plates also appearing on them. But I think that that's kind of a environment and ecological adaptation to Hollow Earth, not necessarily what makes Godzilla's species what it is. So I think that Godzilla is probably the last, if not one of the last, of his species.
Honestly, I prefer Godzilla just being an only creature, I guess. I don't like the idea of there being multiple Godzillas.
I think one would have to die, almost like when one Godzilla dies, another is born.
I mean, like in all the other Kong films, there is other Kongs. You got the Son of Kong. You got you've got the likes of like King Kong lives again, unfortunately, where there is other Kongs. So that doesn't surprise me. But Godzilla, I feel Godzilla works best if it's like just the one, I think. But that's just me.
Yeah, I just want the stakes upped a bit. It would be cool to see Godzilla or Kong die. Just, actually put some danger in there, because otherwise I'm pretty sure they're both just going to be fine.
Let's just quickly check Legendary's license for Godzilla.
When does it end? Yeah.
Well, Legendary's license, I think, was renewed. So they've kept it pretty well under wraps or in the fog regarding Godzilla, I think. But yeah, there's just a lot of interesting directions that this film could take. But I definitely think that Kongs will be coming to the surface.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to have to wait until March 2024 to find out.
Was it March or August? It said.
I want to say 24th of March or April. I've got March in my head.
Which probably means in the next few months we'll probably have like a full trailer. More than
maybe,
likely.
but yeah, you've got a year, I'd say, till it comes out. So they've got a long time to build up.
Well, for Godzilla versus Kong, they waited to drop the trailers for that until like almost the 11th hour, it seemed. So when and where they dropped trailers, have no idea.
Yeah, my guess is they didn't have faith in Godzilla versus Kong, but that's probably why they've released the trailers at the 11th hour. But
I think it was pushed back, wasn't it, because of COVID as well, which didn't help.
Yeah,
it wasn't even in cinemas. It was like it was digital, So, so there was that. But hopefully, there's no super pandemic coming up soon.
No,
fingers
no
more. So this will probably be like the first MonsterVerse film that will probably. So,
okay. So, if nothing else, Connor, what can you recommend our listeners?
If nothing else, go pick up Shin Ultraman. There you go. It's about to fall to bits. Go play Resident Evil 4, because despite what Joe says, and if you think that's not kaiju enough, go play Godzilla Destroy All Monsters in the GameCube.
Yes.
There you go. Joe, if nothing else.
If nothing else, I'm going to say go ahead and give the new teaser trailer a watch. Have that. Fans of Magic the Gathering, go out and play March of the Machine, which is the culmination of a 30-year plot, but the plot has the baddies going to Ikoria, which is where Magic the Gathering set Godzilla, and the character, which is Godzilla in the Magic the Gathering universe, makes a reappearance. So have fun with that and just find an awesome book. I don't have any at the moment that I've necessarily done, but I will be finishing up Coalface soon. So we will see what I have to say about that. So yeah, but Paul.
Awesome. Right. Okay. If nothing else, as Joe said, watch the trailer. Pop some comments if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, join the Facebook group. Let us know what your fan theories are, because I think it's be very interesting to hear what everyone else thinks about this. I can't recommend any books. I would recommend the Starship Troopers anime if you're so inclined to see what came before the Hollywood blockbuster. There's only 6 episodes. It's about 25 minutes long per episode.
Unfortunately, I do have a few books to recommend, but they're all written by Steve Alton, and they'll involve a giant shark.
Oh. Speaking of video games, actually, Gigabash has been announced for coming to the Nintendo Switch, so look out for that because that's got a Godzilla pack. I don't know what other DLC is coming, but they've done Godzilla. So, yeah, that's it. That's it from me. Joe, take us away.
Thank you so much for listening, folks. And as always, keep it kaiju. Should we mention the giveaway, the monthly giveaway that we're doing?
We do need to mention that at some point.
Maybe.
Yeah, so people should totally like and subscribe to us and then like drop us a line that they want to be entered. Should we talk about that? Next episode, right?
Next episode. Yeah.
Next episode. We'll tell them what goodies we're going to give them, right?
Yeah.
Nah.
I like that.
Next episode.
Nah.
Right.